welcome to Atlas. So today we're going to be talking about Britney Spears and why her story right now is important. They're really pushing the narrative of what's going on with her conveyorship. Is that the right term? And I think it's super important because I think she's going to be the catalyst. I think she is going to be the red pill for the normies because a lot of people have no idea about Hollywood, but everyone is pretty invested with her story. There's been free Britney movements for a really long time, actually, and her story is probably not unique because I think that this happens a lot in the Hollywood world. But if you remember, she was a Disney kid. And then she's done several movies as well. But she's always been someone that people were kind of fascinated with. She's always been extremely famous. No matter what part of her life, really. I mean, since the time that she was probably 16 or 17, she's always been pretty famous. And people have grown up with her and got to know who she was, or at least they thought that they did. So they're kind of invested in her story. And the reason why she's so important is because I really think that they're using her to open up the world into what's behind the Hollywood and the music industry. If you actually look at stuff with her case, there is different things about it that just scream MK Ultra. One of them is she can't change the color of her walls in her house. And if you know anything about MK Ultra, that's one of the things about it, is colors are triggers for people. And I think that some colors subdue them more and kind of keep them a little bit more controlled. There's also trigger words and different things that they can use, but the part about it is you don't know that that's happening to you. If you look at a lot of these school shootings and different things that have happened over the years, one of the common things that you'll find with the shooters is none of them remember. Now you could say, well, that's kind of convenient. That way they can use the whole insanity narrative. But I don't think that's actually the case. If you look at a lot of them, almost all of them were going to a therapist. And I remember this quote one time, and I don't know who said it. It might have been Q, might not have. But it said, when you look at these shooters, don't look at them. Maybe you shouldn't put them on trial. Maybe you should put on their therapist. From what I've read about MK Ultra, it can be performed within an hour. Now, some of these I think are probably take a lot longer and probably take more time. But if you step away usually from the situation, you're usually triggered because most of these school shootings involve children, especially the young ones. The young ones really do it for you. That's going to just make you want to do a public hanging right there because you're just so upset that a little child got hurt. But it's almost always conveniently set up where there's going to be a law introduced within the week. Almost always. Now, that's not to say that when we talk about things that could be false, the things that wave in the wind. I don't know if I can say it on here without getting shut down. But if you look at those, that's not to say that people don't get hurt. They absolutely do. But there's a lot of things that don't add up, that don't fit in at all. I remember this one with Sandy Hook, this video of this guy who said he was one of the girls that got killed's father. Now, how would you act if your child had just gotten murdered? Devastated, right? You would just be bawling all the time. You would be upset all the time. I mean, this is your baby. I remember seeing a video of him, and funny enough, I mean, he had just had a picture of him with the president at that time, which I can't remember if that was Obama, but anyway, there was a video of him on stage. He didn't know that they were recording at the time. And he was up there just laughing and talking to some people. And then he walked forward and he knew he was about to be on camera. And his attitude just changed just like that. All of a sudden he was weepy, you know, very emotional. And that's not normal. That's not normal at all. That's not a normal response to someone who just lost their child. I don't know if you've ever really looked into crisis actors, but they're very real. And they show up at a lot of these mass shootings, bombings, whatever. They show up to a lot of them. And unfortunately for them, there's usually a lot of pictures being taken. And you can usually piece them together with other stories that happened, other shootings, horrific events. Usually they're all there. There's been sites that have talked about this for years and actually have done the work and showed you this. But when you look at that in the terms of MK Ultra and bring it back to Britney Spears, I mean, Gene Decode has talked about how MK Ultra plays a role, a massive role, where basically they can create an army that could be very, very, very bad for us, because a lot of people don't know that they were programmed. And you could say that that's not really possible, that you would know if you were being triggered, but I would argue that a lot of people right now have no idea what MSM has actually done to you with this whole mask thing. I mean, how many times have you had someone belligerent come up to you because you're not wearing a mask? I've had an old man in Hobby Lobby that came up grunting at me and huffing because he was very disappointed in my maskless choices. He thought I was killing him. I've seen people yell at other people horribly for not wearing it. I've had a woman grab her child in front of me at a national park, outdoors, and ran past me because I didn't have one. Again, outdoors. But this isn't rational. It's so based on fear that people they don't even try to process it. One of the best things about really digging in and trying to figure out a lot of the stuff that's been going on and going down this rabbit hole is you can see everything. You always can step outside of the situation and see usually what the narrative is within minutes. You don't get triggered by it anymore. That's super freeing. That's really, really freeing. And I absolutely love that I can see things now from a completely different perspective. And I can watch the plan. I can watch things taking place and I can see the steps being taken. And instead of sitting there being fearful, like some people are, I don't see it that way. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be bad things that happen. I absolutely think that that's important to say that. Because it doesn't matter what war you're in, there's always casualties. There's always innocent people that get hurt. But when you look at it from another level, you can see these things being played out. And it makes you feel reassured that you're on the right side of it. Now when we go back to Britney, I strongly think that they are using her as part of the plan. Because people have been aware of her story, some of it, for a very long time. But her story is going to help red pill a lot of people. And I think that she might be just the catalyst that could really bust open the doors of the music industry and Hollywood. I think that a lot of people they want to say that these people in Hollywood, like the young kids, are just kind of spoiled brats, but you don't really know their story. Some of these are probably multi-generational of the occult. I mean, Lady Gaga, her mentor is a Maria Abramovich. If you don't know who that is, she's a massive witch. She's the one that does the spirit cooking. And weirdly, they look very related. They look like they could be mother-daughter or mother-son, because I kind of think that there's definitely things that Lady Gaga has said that makes me question the fact that she might not actually be a she. But that's another story. But if you look at her, and actually a lot of the actors in Hollywood, one of the things that they have to do is show their allegiance. So they have like the Black Eye Club, pictures of them always with, you'll usually see them having a black eye. They'll usually accentuate the eye. They'll also do this for the Code of Silence. This for, it's a Masonic thing, but it's the form of torture that they will use if you break the code. But they always display it. It's kind of like a badge that they wear. And if you remember, Lady Gaga has worn some pretty extreme outfits She wore the one with the giant meat suit. And then the one that looked like, that was all red and it had a crown on it. The crown actually looked like a giant hand. But if you look at her outfits and you understand what the occult is, you immediately get it. And when you think about this torture that takes place with the adrenochrome, you get that too. And then when you go back to Pizzagate and all their code names for everything and you look, you can see this all the time in interviews constantly. But it's so well hidden, you know, because people don't want to believe that their favorite actors or favorite musicians would ever be into something like this. They come off really nice on camera. They're nice, beautiful, gorgeous people. But there is a very dark side to things. And Mel Gibson has exposed Hollywood years ago. And they tried to ruin his life. I don't even know how he survived, really. I'm surprised they didn't kill him off. But if you look at all of his movies, The Patriot, you know, all of his movies were kind of exposing this whole thing without us even realizing it. Actually, one of my favorite movies that he did that I just watched recently was Conspiracy Theory. That's a fun one. But going back to a lot of these movies, you can see that in them now. I think there's going to be a big shift. I mean, there is going to be one. But I think that the White Hats have to use mainstream people to kind of get other people's attention, to red pill them. They need to have something that will grab them, to show them that this is actually happening. Because a lot of people really aren't going to dig for themselves. A lot of people aren't going to do the research. They're too lazy and they want to be told what's going on. And unfortunately, that's not how this works. You have to dig. And the internet does a pretty good job of scrubbing a lot of the information. So you have to dig and save the documents whenever you find them, because they are usually gone pretty quickly. But there's some incredible people out there that's working really, really hard to get this information out to you, and that have done all the research. But you need to, there's a lot of people that get so mad at someone and says, oh, they're a disinformation person. And they start blasting them online and saying, this person is a terrible person, you shouldn't even listen to them. Well, I don't like that. And I'll tell you why. Because usually they actually have really good information, and guaranteed that at one time or another, we have all gotten it wrong. I think that what you should do is you should be opening to listening to people and see if it resonates with you. If it doesn't, throw it out. If it does, there you go, keep it. Because a lot of people have lost their intuition. And once you start channeling that and actually listening to what that is, it becomes stronger and stronger, and you can really fine-tune it and you can really see it. You actually can tell the truth when you hear it almost immediately. And some of it will just not sit well with your spirit, and you just need to throw it out. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the person is wrong. Sometimes the information that they get might not be, it might not be right. But that happens all the time. And you still have to weed through it. But you need to tune in to what your intuition is telling you. And when you start blasting people, you're not doing any good. You're really not. You're hurting this movement. And if the people's goal is to help you break the matrix that has been set up since you were born, then that's a good thing. But we're not always going to agree, and that's okay. We don't have to. But I have no intention of blasting anyone. I'm looking forward to what's taking place right now. I'm looking forward to more things being disclosed every day. And when you wake up to a lot of the stuff that's been happening and you break out of that matrix, you can see it every day. And so many people get stuck on the timeline. They want it to move faster and faster. And that's a problem that we all have. But there's things that you can see happening daily. And if you focus on those, it will bring you joy to actually see things progressing. And if you see President Trump moving out in front of the cameras more and more, I think that's good. He's preparing. He's definitely preparing for his return. And you can see the momentum building with that. And I'm so happy to be alive right now and to witness this from this side of things. It's really fun, actually, to see it and be awake to what's going on. And you can see this whole plan being played out. Maybe it was not how you envisioned it, but as it's being played out, you're like, wow, that was brilliant. It was a good thing that he didn't, I thought that on Inauguration Day that they would just swoop in there with the military. I was ready for it. Timing was wrong. But now looking back at it, that was not the best plan at all. Trump would have looked like a villain. But what did he do? He retreated in a way to the background. And then they showed you all the bad. And the bad of the Biden administration. Everything that they're wanting to do with the prices and everything. All the horrible laws that they're wanting to pass through. All the stuff that they're wanting to do with other countries. All these agreements. Yeah, it's bad for our country. But you know what it did? It made a lot of Biden supporters have buyer's remorse. They were ticked. And I gotta admit, I got some joy out of that one. Because I think a lot of people thought that he was safe. You know, he was the safe bet because Trump has mean words. And now he ended up being the bigger red pill for them. It's all been a part of this plan. And I'm so glad that I'm not the one writing it, because it wouldn't have lasted long and our country would have been destroyed. But I absolutely love that I can see it now from a different angle. And whenever you start paying attention more. You realize you're less triggered. You always step back more from the situation and you look at it with different eyes. And whenever you do that, you find freedom in that. You can reanalyze everything and see it completely differently. And there's so much freedom in it. It completely takes away the fear. Actually, that's what it does. It removes it because you can see the narrative always being placed. So watch what's happening. Don't get so focused on the timeline. Get more focused on what you can see right now. Because I can guarantee you, when you see these things taking place, it's going to bring you a lot more joy and happiness than focusing on that timeline. And watch Britney, because I think she's going to be a big red pill for the world. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me.